So I'm delighted to be in conversation with Jenifer Joy Madden, advocate for digital wellness and child development. Jenifer is a seasoned health journalist, author, speaker, and digital wellness educator. With a career spanning major media outlets like ABC News, PBS, and The Washington Post, she's focused on health and science communication. She founded thedurablehuman.com in 2009. Now, Gaining is an international coalition co-founded by Jenifer, comprising of child development experts, healthcare professionals, and advocates from over 30 countries. The alliance aims to raise awareness about the impact of early life screen exposure to infants and toddlers. And through initiatives like mybabygains.org, it's a research-backed resources and guidelines to promote face-to-face interactions and physical play over screen time for young children. So, as you know, Jenifer, I'm a very passionate person around screen-free for the early years, helping parents give their children the best start. So I'm absolutely delighted to be talking to you today. And I'm very excited to explore baby brain development with you because it's such a crucial and often misunderstood time in a child's life. So the way we nurture and connect with babies during these very early months and years literally shapes their brains, how they grow, how they learn, how they relate to the world around them. So it's very powerful. And it's something that every parent, I think, deserves to understand and feel confident about. So just before we dive into some of the questions and the research and the advice, could you share what first, got you inspired to focus so profoundly on protecting and nurturing young children's development in a digital world?
Well, sure. I think it springs from love of my children and extended to children all over the world. It's been such a pleasure to see how my three have developed. They're now grown, durable adults, and two of them have little ones of their own. Each of my children have really blossomed in different directions, and it's been fascinating. And I think every child should have the opportunity to express themselves. Each child is completely different from the other, and we don't want that to be inadvertently snuffed out, which I'm afraid can happen now because their attention can be so easily captured and diverted. And so that's what we really have to be careful of, is to make sure that our babies bloom right from the start.
Absolutely. So can you explain then that a baby's brain is making 1 million new connections every second, isn't it? Can you help parents really understand what that looks like and why everyday moments matter so much?
Yes. So we are human beings and we have evolved with each other all this time. And so parents have special gifts they can bestow to their babies to really nurture them and to bring them to the fore and actually help to bloom their brains. And it's amazing that in the first year, the baby's brain is making those 1 million neural connections per second. They're supposed to be going in all directions, like tiny shooting stars going in all different ways through the brain, because the children are using their senses, all their senses. The brain is actually knitting together. And technically, I can use a visual for you. We want the brain to bloom all the way around, kind of like this broccoli, bushy. And what happens is, if a child is on a device very early in life, the neural pathways still form, but they are going in just certain pathways because all the senses aren't being used at the same time, especially, taste, touch, and smell. They're blazing pathways, but they aren't going out in all directions. So I always like to compare it with a broccolini, which is, yeah, it's developed, but it may not be developing in all the different directions it's supposed to develop. So I like to use that metaphor with parents so they can appreciate and respect what the babies need. They need to actually explore their world slowly using all their senses, and they actually need a very close-up look at the parents' faces in order to learn how to speak.
I mean, that is such a fantastic analogy and so visual to see absolutely the brain looking like broccoli and how you explain it is just so, so powerful. I mean, what are some of the simple things then that parents can do every day to help nourish perhaps their baby's growing brain?
Well, I think we really have to think about how babies need to see close up the parent's face. The parent is how the baby learns how to speak, and their focal length is very short to begin with. They can only see this far away. And so the parents lean in, and the babies are starting to focus on the eyes and the mouth and the nose. And that's how they learn to figure out, okay, words coming out of mouth have some meaning, and eyebrows going up and down, that also means something. So they're learning at a very basic level, and they're learning at a close range. We don't want to block that. We want to allow the babies to have maximum time to learn and to watch us. That's one thing that's really important, is to not allow your face to be blocked, for instance,
Yeah.
by a phone. Um,
Yes, yes. Isn't it powerful? Yeah.
Well, it is powerful, and scientists in the lab have actually looked at the neurological effects of that on an infant's brain. They do
Yeah.
set up a stress response when something is blocking the parent's face. And now
Right.
that's going to happen occasionally,
Yes.
just naturally. But if the baby's looking, trying to get the parent's attention and can't do
Right.
it because they're blocked, that does cause a stress response in the infant. You don't want that. What you're trying to do is build a strong relationship with the baby so the baby can trust you and know you're there when they need you.
That's so powerful, just seeing it blocking like that. Oh my goodness, it just makes you think, doesn't it? So new research shows that screen viewing affects babies' speech, doesn't it? And their emotions,
Mhm.
and even how they relate to people. So what is it about the screens then that interrupts those very early developmental building blocks? You've explained it a little bit. Is there anything else that we need to know?
Yes, there's a matter of quantity when learning how to speak, and we're talking about quantity of words. Babies are supposed to be hearing conversational turns. That means back and forth conversations in the household, and also to actually hear words. And these are not synthetic words, they're words spoken by human beings. And synthetic words don't have the same effect on the baby's brain. Those are words that might come out of a screen. And so it's very important for parents to value their conversation with the baby. It matters. Long periods of silence are not serving the baby whatsoever, because the baby is a sponge trying to soak up all this information, especially in the first year of life. It's amazing that babies have this special window of opportunity between birth and age 1 when they're incredibly good at learning language. Now, they may not start saying words till the end of that first year, but you have to understand the foundations are being built, and they're watching and they're learning and they're getting ready to use their lips to make words. All that stuff is happening from birth to age 1, even though it's not real obvious to us, but
Mm.
it's super important for us to observe them and have this back and forth interaction with them.
Oh, so important. I mean, some parents ask, don't they? Well, if my baby's watching a short educational video, isn't that okay? So what do you say to that?
What I would say to that is that babies don't learn well from a screen. This is another thing that's been learned in the lab, that babies don't necessarily transfer what they're staring at to their own lives and the way they interact with others. Babies do quiet down when a screen is put in front of them, and they're actually mesmerized by the changing colors, the images, and the noises. They're drawn to that. Mesmerized is the word, but they are not learning much from it. It's very, very, very low quality, and they can't really learn. I can tell you about one experiment that they have repeated
Yeah.
in the lab, which
Ooh.
is you've got a very young child that understands, not an infant, but a baby, watching a screen where somebody is hiding something in a room under a pillow, like a toy. And so when the baby is asked to find the toy, they can't find it. Now, it's not exactly clear what's happening in their brain, but they couldn't make the connection between what they're seeing on the screen and what is actually happening in person. If you take that same baby take them into the room with the couch and the pillow and the toy, put it under the pillow, the baby will immediately go over there and find it.
Wow, so that's powerful as well, isn't
Yep.
it?
That's called the video deficit. That's the technical term for it. So it may seem that the baby's maybe picking something up,
Yeah.
but it does not compute necessarily in their brain. So this in-person learning is really what they need.
Yeah, isn't it? Real life, real eyes, real facial stuff, really in the moment experiences. I mean, if a parent has a limited time during the day, what are those key moments then that they could focus on for meaningful connection, do you think?
Well, if they have limited time, then that means that they make the best of the time that they are together with the baby. That may mean conserving some energy for when you get home from whatever you're doing,
Yeah,
be able to contribute and to interact with the baby in a responsive way, because that's what they're looking for.
yeah,
What they really want is back and forth interaction. It's a little like playing ball. So if they toss you some sort of a clue, like a babble, or they raise their eyebrows at you, or they do a little jiggle, that's a clue for you to react back. And so you respond back. So it's they serve you, you return the serve, and it goes back and forth like that. And so it happens even in the evening when you have those few minutes with your child, then you just be there. Put your phone aside,
yes,
concentrate on them, be
yes,
there when they ask you a question. And if you have to cook dinner, well, if you have a baby, you might want to put them near you. You can speak while
yeah,
just chatter with them while you're having
yeah,
dinner, or put them in a safe space nearby where they can amuse themselves with toys. Then maybe you can kind of speak as you're making dinner, and then later to again be there when you're doing the simple things like getting them ready for bed, changing diapers, and that sort of thing.
yeah,
Yeah, they might wiggle less if you put a device up there for them to look at, but they need to look at your face at close range right then. They
yeah,
need to not only to be able to build their brain power, but also for you to build that closeness.
yes,
And I wanted to mention that this goes for all the way through childhood, that they have also done studies to show that when parents are separated from the child all day, or the kids in school, the
mm,
two are separated,
sure,
if there's high quality interaction when they are together, it really keeps that bond. It keeps that attachment that the child can wait all day long until they see the mom or the dad. And then if the mom and dad are open and there mentally, then
yeah.
that just feeds the heart of the child. And that's going to be like that all the way through high school. So that's like
Mm.
putting your phone away in those few minutes that you have dinner together.
I know it's being fully present in the moment, isn't it? And of course, what you're describing is not passive because screens are passive, but talking and babbling and chatting is active. And that's what babies really thrive on, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would say I really am getting to like the word interactive because it's so descriptive of what babies need. They need you to pay attention to what they're doing, sense what, look at them, observe them,
Mm.
and then react.
Yes.
And it's that kind of give and take that builds your relationship and their brain power.
I love the idea that parents' voices and their faces and their hugs are like what you call brain food for babies. Why is human interaction irreplaceable? I mean, what do parents need to know about trusting themselves over the gadgets?
Hmm. Well, they just have to know they're born with what the babies need. They embody what the babies need, which is human interaction. So it's not just your face and your voice, but it's also your arms to soothe them. Touch is huge. Only
Yes.
humans can provide that. And you are everything to them. They've been listening to your voice all this time, and they want to hear it again over and over. And it makes them feel secure, mentally secure, and it also keeps building that knowledge of how to speak. And you also have intuition. That's a human quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we need to do is I have this durable human website, and I have been observing. I launched that in 2009 because I wanted to see how these synthetic objects were going to affect our humanity and how we were going to get along with each other. And they have profoundly, as you know, and everybody knows. But what that means is that we have to start acknowledging our humanity, what we can do that our machines
Mhm.
can't, and
Yeah.
then really respect that and be proud of that. So parents do have this intuition to sense that their baby's just about to blow a gasket in the grocery store, and they, might need to pick them up, put in their arm for a minute to calm them down. And parents have this beautiful intuition. And we want parents to be able to think clearly, and to be able to pay attention to their children and what they need, and to pick up on these nuances that only parents and human beings can sense in other human beings.
I know that with all the pressure to use these apps and these tech tools for babies, how
Mm.
can parents feel more confident then by listening to you, of course, if they want to go screen light or screen free or away from the blue light or away from the passivity of tech? What do you advise that they do? What is the website that they can find out more about you?
Well, I'd like to point them to the gaining website, which is
Yeah.
mybabygains.org. And there's a resources page there. And there is a lot to be said about how parents can manage with the screen light lifestyle, and that they, we like to use the phrase tech can wait. It's
Yes.
you time now, not screen time. And it's
Yes.
just these year or two
Delay. Yeah.
years of is just hold off on it
Yes.
and
Yeah.
understand how important that you are, not you
Yeah.
and other human beings. So
Yes.
your caregiver, the people at the daycare center, at the nursery, they are all really important for this baby to really get their feet on the ground in terms of knowing their own operating systems. So they need to know their own OS before you introduce other OS into their lives. They need that firm foundation. It's like building a house.
Yes.
All those understandings that happen in those early months are the foundation for all the learning that comes later for these kids. And if they have a shaky foundation, they may not be able to learn language well. They may have language delays and have other developmental problems because too much of their time was taken up in this low quality environment of a
Yes.
two-dimensional screen.
Very, very scary, but very important to talk about, isn't it, for parents to feel confident in saying no to screens? You highlight the need for babies to move and play freely. Why is physical activity, even wriggling and crawling, so crucial for mental development of babies?
Well, we are integrated beings. And so, therefore, there are parts of the brain that really activate through movement. And
Yeah.
one of them is the limbic system. And that's why we like babies to turn over. We like toddlers to tumble into bed with their, fooling around with their parents before they go to bed, because it activates the limbic system, which is an emotional regulator. It's kind of funny to think about this movement, this active movement leads to emotional regulation, but it does. And besides that, being sedentary does not allow a child to understand balance and understand how their bodies work and how strong they are and how they need to, learn how to use their muscles. And so that's why there have been some amazing, amazing articles written in England about this, about children entering the first year of school, not being able to sit up and balance,
Yes.
not being able to hold a writing instrument because their hands have been like this too long. They can't grasp, and they
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
they don't know their bodies. And it's so important that we do as human beings know our bodies. That's all we have. So we
Yeah.
really take care of them and learn how they work.
Oh, it's so important. So, what kinds of play or what kinds of activities do you recommend then for babies and toddlers to support this growth that's so important?
Oh gosh, there's some basics. We've already talked about the importance of just interacting, of having conversations, even when the baby's how many days old, it doesn't matter. If they even look your direction, you can engage them. and speak to them gently and softly, and do that and keep it up. Now, we don't mean yammering constantly. As they get a few months old, really a few, maybe even 2, they're watching you. And if you're yammer, 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 never stop, they don't have a chance to respond. And so what you can do is react to what they've done, speak a little bit, look at them carefully,
Wait.
quizzically,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes 10 seconds, long
Sure.
seconds, but you'll see it. They make a little sound back or they have some sort of reaction. That's the beginning of conversation. And that's what you want to encourage as a parent to do that. So that's one thing. I'll talk about reading right now. Reading is a great alternative to screens and
Yes.
allows that human touch. And there's
Yeah.
a huge variety of books. Little babies benefit from stark contrast, black and white.
Yes. Yeah.
And then later on, anything goes. There's stories, there are rhymes, there are so many different type of books, and it allows the child to learn how to focus and to pay attention.
Yes.
They're listening to you. They're listening. That is a skill that's going to take them through their lifetime. And so reading is very, very powerful and does connect the brain in ways that a screen can't even begin to. There's also the idea of going out in nature.
Yeah.
Nature is a great integrator of a child's senses. Once they are out there, all their senses are activated. If they walk by a blossoming tree, they're going to smell it. If it's safe, they can taste things too. And so that's an opportunity for parents to go out there and allow their child to have tactile experiences. So that would be put their little hands against the bark, let them feel the bark of a tree, dangle their toes in the grass. This is has huge power of integrating their senses and really building that brain power. And also if there's water there that's not too
Yeah.
cold, you could put their fingers, their toes in the water and talk to them about everything that's out there, like the colors of the flowers. You can go on a color walk with the baby in the stroller and say, hey, there's some yellow daisies, there's this and there's that. And it's a way to build vocabulary and for them to have this ability to co they co-view with you. You're looking at the same thing.
Yes.
And so that's also a great thing for you to do is to coordinate with them and they feel it and it gives them a lot of confidence. So those are
And of
some
course, it's important for them to, hop and jump and skip and climb and roll and have tummy time. All these physical things builds their dexterity, their fine motor skills when they're playing with toys, or their big motor skills as they get a bit older when they're doing things with scissors and stuff. So it's all very important that people sometimes overlook and think, oh, that's okay, it's easier to do and watch things on a screen. But all of these things build up their dexterity, don't they?
They do that. There's a tendency, especially when having a screen as an easy opportunity, that you push off. We'll go for a walk over the weekend, or we'll read a book later, and the later
Yeah.
doesn't really come.
Yeah.
So if the screens are off, that is an opportunity to do all those other things that babies need to do. And parents shouldn't be real worried that they have to be with the baby every second because there's this notion of a yes space, which is it's a long-term thing that people have been doing. They used to put babies in playpens.
Yes.
Now, a yes space is a place where a baby is safe within a boundary, maybe a baby gate with a soft
Yes.
surface, and you put the baby in there with some objects that interest them, non-electronic playthings, which don't necessarily have to be toys. They
Yeah.
can be pieces of fabric. They can be plastic containers and lids. Some,
Saucepans.
pardon me? Pardon me?
Saucepans.
Yes. So the baby in that area is going to be learning to self-soothe.
Yes. Yes. Very important.
That's such an important skill because if you soothe the baby with a device, the baby doesn't really learn those skills. The
Yeah.
baby learns to just wait for the device and then be pacified. And
Yeah.
that is the lure for us. And we just have to be careful and make good use of our yes spaces and make sure that in those times when baby might get fussy, we have that board book in a bag. We can pull it out, and small little objects that the baby can play with that are even fun. A hair clip can work if you're really stuck. A
Oh,
little
okay.
crocodile thing. Done that
You
before.
can use anything to entertain as long as it's safe for the baby,
Right,
really.
right.
Use your common sense. I mean, for parents who already feel like it's a bit too late and they've already been heavily leaning on the screens, is it ever too late to make a change? I mean, what happens if they start to build in more face-to-face time?
Well, I think you really hit on it when you say build in more. If your child has gotten used to having a lot of screen time, then you take it step by step. And you may want to start by having some place where it becomes non-screen, that all there is
Mm.
there is the child without any devices around, and probably yourself or their siblings or something like that. And so start in just one little place to build your own confidence up.
Yes.
Now, if the child really is having a problem detaching, there are methods that you can use that have been published to be able to help the child understand what life is like without screens. And one of them is Victoria Dunkley's book, Reset Your Child's Brain. And she has step-by-step methods for approaching that. So it's not necessarily take it away right that very second. It may be that you have to make your plan, figure out how you're going to set up the household, and even mention it to your child that it's going to happen, and then make it happen. So there's actually some instruction for this. But it's very important that it's really ideal that parents try to prevent that kind of dependency before it gets started,
Yes.
because the science is showing that babies, especially who are using screens, have developmental issues in a variety of different ways. And the idea is for those not ever to get started.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's worth mentioning here when I write about it and talk about it is your habits as a parent matter. Because if they see you constantly on a screen or constantly on a device, then they're learning and listening and watching you all the time. And the habits start with you, actually. So I've got a download on my website for parents not to point fingers and blame them, but to sort of ask themselves some coaching questions, I call them, about your own screen use, because then that helps you monitor what you're doing so that your baby is not automatically just picking up bad habits from you as well. So it's a combination as a family, isn't it, to kind of come at this together and slow things down. Just one more thing I wanted to ask you. You talk about manipulative design. Why are young brains so vulnerable to that? What is that? Can you explain it a bit?
What is that? It's a science. It's a
Yeah.
science that has been developed. They put babies in a lab and they watch them and they see what engages the baby with the screen. They notice when the baby looks away like this, and then they're like, what happened just then? We don't want the baby to look away. We want the baby to look at the screen.
Right.
And so they'll double down on whatever was happening right before the baby looked away. What's keeping the baby there? Some of the techniques are very rapidly changing images,
Yes.
maybe alternating images. I have heard, but do not have proof, that sometimes they'll put in a blank screen, kind of like a strobe effect, to get the child to keep watching. As the child gets a little bit older and starts to really understand language, there may be characters in the show that are saying, where are you going? Don't turn me off. I want you to be here. That
Oh
actually
no.
exists in some apps. That's definitely persuasive design. That's actively persuading the baby not to leave. And then
Yeah.
what they try to do in a number of these different type of apps and shows is to sell something, to have the
Yes.
baby want something to buy and then go to the parents and try to buy it. So those are some other
Yeah.
techniques that are used.
Yeah. One of the, I mean, that's just so scary and so manipulative and so awful. So I hope that's shocking a few people watching this. The other thing is also, I help parents trying to understand that that auto, queuing up when you're on, you think you're on kids YouTube or whatever it is, and then the next one comes and the next one. That's addictive to babies as well. And of course it's fast and colourful and all the rest of it. So it's best not to allow your child to be sitting there passively just going on to the next thing all the time, because that really isn't teaching them best habits, really. So listening to today, what are the key takeaways that you would like parents listening to this today to take away from all the research that you've been doing and all the people you've been working with?
Well, to understand the power of these synthetic objects on the baby's brain development, and that having them sit there is not giving them the input that their brain needs, and their brain can develop in a way that's not typical. And so there are language delays that are being seen now. There are behavioral mannerisms that resemble autism that also can set up in a child. All of a sudden, they're really, concentrating on lines or only spinning, or they're just doing something. They're like, wow, that's unusual. That sometimes is a sign that if there has been a lot of screen viewing in the household, because background TV can also be a problem.
Yes, noise, just constant noise in the background. Yes.
Exactly. So not just the child viewing themselves or the parent blocked by the phone, but the actual TV playing on in the background, filling up the silence. What it's doing is it's drawing the baby away from their interest, which is play, which is how they learn. And it's really, really depressing the number of words that are being spoken. It stands to reason. The TV's making noise. You can hardly speak over it. The child's not going to hear as many words in the household. That also leads to language delay later on. And so it's really important for people to know it's not unproven. There is data to show that in the first 2 years, babies really should not be around screens.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there are other ways to quiet them down, that's for sure. And
Um,
to turn to those ways instead, and to set up your household so screens are not the
the
focus.
default. Yeah, not the
Exactly.
default.
You can,
Yeah.
you can put the big screens out of the way or cover them with some doors. You can put your device away, out of
Yeah.
reach and silent, so it doesn't even
Yeah.
vibrate. So you can really
Yeah.
concentrate on the baby, and then have certain places in the house where there are no screens. And that would
Yes.
be bedrooms, and also during mealtime, not to have when
Yes.
you
Yeah.
feed the
Yeah.
baby.
And for me, I hope people watching this don't default to, in restaurants, just handing over their smartphone to their toddler or baby. I hope that there is enough evidence from here that people will just pause to ponder and think, oh my goodness, perhaps we need to cut right back on what we're doing with screens. Where can people find out all about you and more about this?
Well, I can send them to mybabygains.org. We have an excellent resources page, and I write about many things like this on durablehuman.com. I do have a parenting course that I have that's very simple. It has about 4 videos with essentials about brain development, and
Yeah.
also nurturing your child's humanity, their curiosity, their compassion, and all those things that we need these days. Humanity is being threatened now,
Yeah.
I guess that's a word, by encroaching artificial intelligence. And
Yes.
what we need to do is we need to bulk up on our humanity and keep ourselves as durable as possible. And that includes babies knowing their own minds and bodies, but also being able to learn and being able to reason and understand as they grow older, because we are going to have perspective on ourselves in relation to technology, and to know where we are with these more and more intelligent sources. And
Yeah.
so it's really, really important for parents to know those first couple of years are essential for the babies to get their
Yes.
human feet on the ground
Yes. And get
before
their bearings. Yeah.
get their
Absolutely.
bearings.
And also, if people are interested in toddlers and tech, go and listen to navigatingthedigitalJungle.com, where we cover all sorts of areas of juggling screens, devices, family life with technology. It's not always easy, but it's important to find that balance. So I hope people have found this very helpful. And thank you so much for giving up your time to talk with me today.
Well, thank you for yours. I really appreciate it and all your understanding and everything you've written in the past too. So thank you for that.